So when we started this wall project, I really kind of thought it would just be an entire solid wall with nothing special on it. But as I started putting it together, I sort of thought, you know, it'd be neat to have something here on the wall. What can we do? So I thought of maybe doing a stripe somewhere near the top or whatever, but then we came up with the idea of putting some shelves in. And I thought this was a really cool idea, and I needed to have lights because I love lights. So I went ahead and did that. It took a couple extra days to build the shelves and stain them and everything, but I think it was definitely worth it. The one challenge here is that you can't just put shelves wherever you want. You have to be sure that the studs are not in the way, unless you're planning to cut through them. So we had a stud, of course they were not centered, so we had to be sure to try our best to sort of make them balanced here without cutting into them. And I think we did that pretty well. The studs, I think, are on the left side of both shelves there. But so it's something that you could think of doing at your own house if you're doing a stone wall, is trying to come up with some kind of shelf idea. For us, we do a lot of music lessons here, so we put a little red stage on the floor, and the students sort of sit in the middle, so it gives you a nice balanced look to the place, which is really cool. Alright, so I'm starting to cut out the holes here for the eventual shelves that are going to go on this wall, but I've got an outlet down here, and I'm a little bit nervous that there might be a wire running up here to the second floor. So I'm being really cautious, cutting this a few inches at a time to make sure this red blink shows that this thing's on. And if I stick it in the hole here, I should hear it beep. I'm touching the stud now, and there's no beeps. I'm pushing it back, no sound whatsoever in there. Jam it through the insulation, which thankfully there's insulation. Get no sound there, got no sound on this side. So there may actually not be a wire in here, which is great, so I don't have to be so careful. And just for kicks, to make sure, if I stick it in here, it does indeed work. So this is, you know, being extra careful here to make sure we don't cut any wires that are live. Alright, so I took some 1x5 pine boards, select pine, and cut them up to make 12x17 frames here, and we are now staining it. This is candlelight color gel stain, and so we've done the insides and the parts that are visible, so it looks really nice. And the only thing left here is to cut a hole for the light that's going to go in the top of each one of these, somewhere in the top, and those are supposed to be delivered today, so we'll see what those look like. But these are going in the cutouts in the stone wall. Literally just got these LED lights in the mail. They look like this. They're very small, 1-inch hole. And I've got them hooked up to a power supply with a 1 ohm resistor, 1% 1 ohm resistor. It's reading 0.57 volts across that resistor, which means 0.57 amps. And I've got 2 of them in parallel, and I've got 3.25 volts across both of them. You know, they're in parallel, so both of them have 3.25 volts across them. The reason I put them in parallel is I plan to wire them in parallel, and I wanted to see if they already have a dropping resistor inside. Because if so, I can put them in parallel and they'll light the same intensity, and sure enough, they do look like the same intensity. If they didn't have a dropping resistor in them, then one would be brighter than the other, and I'd have to add a resistor to each light. But this looks quite promising, so I need to supply... I can put them in parallel, and then I need to supply like probably a 5-volt power supply just from a cell phone charger, and about a 3 ohm resistor, and I'll get exactly the voltage that I need to drive these to this brightness. And that 3 ohm resistor will have to handle I think about 1 watt at that point, so it's not too bad. I'll put a couple resistors in there and we'll get it going. But yeah, they look pretty good. I'm excited. So here the shelves are installed in the wall, and it's shimmed in place and leveled. Here you can see the wire that runs up to the top where we're going to connect it to the LED lights. That wire runs in a groove behind the top of the stone over to the next shelf. And I got 2 wires there because the other wire then continues into the wall and runs down to the basement. And the wires are simply snaked through here behind the stone, and the lamps are only running on 3 volts. So literally this is like ultra low voltage, so not even a concern.